My parents unplugged my premature baby's life-saving equipment to charge my sister's phone. Before I tell you what happened next, make sure you like this video, subscribe to our channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss more real-life stories like this one. My name is Amelia, and if you'd met me a year ago, you'd have called me ambitious, stubborn and planned. I kept color-coded calendars, stacked deadlines like dominoes, and treated sleep like a hobby I would pick up later. Babies, later love, later life. Later after promotions, after savings, after a ring that didn't turn my finger green. Then later arrived early. It was supposed to be a clean ending, with a man who made big promises and even bigger silences. We'd been off for months when the test turned positive. 2 faint lines that roared. I stared until the white stick felt hot in my hand. The plans in my head scrambled like birds from a gunshot. Telling my parents felt like walking into a courtroom. Dad, a straight spine in a faded church suit, believed in sequence, school, job, marriage, mortgage, then cradle. Mom believed in optics. What will people say? She vacuumed feelings the way she vacuumed carpets, swiftly and without apology. I told them anyway. Dad's mouth went flat. A paper cut. Mom blinked twice, as if the announcement were a smudge she could wipe away. I wasn't prepared for the loneliness inside their silence, but I chose my child. I bought prenatal vitamins I couldn't pronounce, downloaded meditation apps I never opened, and whispered to the little flutter I called Bean, because I needed her to have a name before anyone else decided her worth. Complications started at 27 weeks. Hospital bracelets replacing bracelets I actually liked. At 29 weeks, Bean arrived. Fierce and tiny, a bird in a storm. The NICU became a country with its own language apneas. Sats, Brady's, monitors like constellations in the half-dark. I learned the patterns by heart. I learned fear by taste. And I learned that some people, even those who share your blood, can be more dangerous than any diagnosis. I just didn't know how far it would go. NICUs hum like chapels. Machines breathe with tiny lungs. Lights pulse like prayers. The first time a nurse placed my gloved finger inside the porthole, Bean curled around it like a secret. I cried, ugly and unashamed, because touch proved she was here, and not an idea I'd once defended in a kitchen that smelled like bleach and judgment. Days became measured in feeds and alarms. I pumped at 2 a.m., 5 a.m., 8 a.m., labeling milk in careful script, as if neatness could promise survival. Nurses taught me the ritual, kangaroo care. Skin against skin, counting breaths, staring at numbers like oracles. I learned which beep was routine, and which one meant move now. I learned the nurse's stride when something went wrong. My parents began visiting, posted selfies from the parking lot, pray for our miracle, then stood at Bean's bedside, as if attending a museum exhibit. Dad would suggest I rest. Mom would ask whether he knew about the baby. Her voice dipped in contempt. My sister Sade drifted in with lip gloss and gossip. Her attention span a butterfly. She's cute, she said once, as if complimenting a purse. Still, I tried to believe family could learn love the way I learned monitors. I tried to believe in progress. Bean gaining grams, oxygen settings nudged down, the world widening beyond cables and tape. On the day that matters, a nurse needed my signature for a routine consent form. 15 minutes, she said, smiling. I glanced at Bean, pale pink, steady, and kissed the spot above her brow where hair would be. The corridor smelled like coffee and sanitizer. I signed where the arrow pointed, thanked the nurse, and checked the time like a superstitious sailor. 15 minutes. I remember because guilt knows numbers. When I pushed the door open again, the room felt wrong, like a song missing its bassline. Silence where the monitor's heartbeat should live. A hum cut short, and then one bright, impossible detail that would reorder my life. First came the silence, then the color pink. A glossy, bubblegum charging cable blooming from the wall socket, where Bean's backup power should have been. My body moved before my brain. I reached the outlet, tracing the cord with my eyes to a phone in my sister's hand. She leaned against the wall, scrolling, lips parted in a lazy smile at something glowing that wasn't my daughter. My parents stood beside her, chatting softly, their bodies a casual fence between me and the truth. What did you do? My voice cracked into the sterile air. Sade didn't look up. Relax, it's just for a second. My phone is at 2%. Just for a second. I heard the old Amelia in my tone, the one who explained, reasoned, made bullet points. She was useless here. I yanked the charger. This was powering her oxygen backup. Mom's face didn't flinch. Don't make a scene, she said, adjusting the strap on her handbag. She looked fine. The beeping was annoying everyone. Behind me, Bean's chest fluttered once, twice like a candle fighting its own smoke. The monitor flared a warning, then dimmed again. I slammed the original plug back in, heart ricocheting, but my hands shook and found plastic instead of metal. "Nurse," I screamed, the words scraping my throat raw. One arrived at a run, eyes assessing. Fingers sure, she reconnected. Tapped adjusted, gave Bean a gentle jostle that coaxed a tiny cry I wanted to frame and hang above every door I'd ever walk through. The nurse's gaze snapped to my family, horrified and sharp. "You cannot touch this equipment." Dad lifted his chin. "We're her grandparents." The nurse's voice cooled. "Then act like it." Security was called. A report was filed. In the corridor, Dad muttered about disrespect. Mom smoothed her hair. Sade slid her phone into her pocket like a weapon she decided not to use. I stood over my daughter, hand on the incubator, and felt something ancient rise in me. Not rage, not yet, witness. I would not forget. I would not be told I imagined it. After that day, I became a scientist of pattern. Spreadsheets on my phone, photos with timestamps. I logged everything: oxygen settings, feed volumes, med dosages, the exact angle of Bean's tubing when she slept well. If truth could be argued, then truth would also be archived. And still, things slipped. A bottle I just labeled showed up spilled in the trash. Milk bleeding into paper towels like an apology. A syringe of vitamins I'd placed in the medication bin reappeared warm on the counter an hour later. Once, Bean's oxygen cannula sat just off her nostrils, tape curling like a smile. "It happens," someone said kindly. "We all make mistakes. Do we, or do some of us choose them?" My parents kept arriving with plastic piety, verses on their lips, condemnation in the commas. "You're overattached." Mom said, "Babies sense anxiety." Dad added, "You can't live your life in this room." Sade brought a ring light for better pictures, then complained the monitor beeps ruined her reels. I asked the charge nurse about restricting visitors. She nodded, sympathetic, but rules are rules. 2 banded visitors allowed. Family first, unless there was a reason to change it. A reason stronger than my word. Fine, I would get one. That evening, I nestled a button camera in my tote. Its eye angled at the outlet like a watchful star. I pretended to nap in the recliner. A blanket pitched to hide the tiny red indicator. My ears chased every footstep, every sigh. 2 days later, I watched the footage in the cafeteria. A plastic tray under my elbows. Coffee untouched. There was my mother, precise as a metronome, fingers finding the plug without hesitation. The backup power slipped free. Off-screen, Sade's voice. "Quick. Pass the extension. My straightener won't reach." In the frame's edge, Bean's lips paled. A gray I will see forever. Then the nurse. A blur of motion, restoring life like a magician who hates applause. I didn't cry. I walked to administration. The social worker met me with a pen that looked heavier than it should. We watched the video together, her jaw setting one notch at a time. "We'll file an incident. Request visitor restrictions. Add a note, do not touch equipment." The words became fences as she spoke them, letters bending into rails. I signed forms, she printed copies. The paper felt thin, but it was the first shield I'd held that anyone else could see. My phone buzzed. "Dad, we need to talk about your attitude." "Mom, you will not embarrass this family." Sade, a string of eye-roll emojis, and a screenshot of her battery at 2%, as if math were morality. I blocked no one. I wanted the record intact. That night, a new number rang. A man's voice, warm and oiled. "Pastor Daniel, my mother's favorite prophet." "Daughter," he said, as if the word belonged to him. "Some children arrive as tests, family burdens that must be released. You mustn't cling to what God is taking away." I stared at my sleeping child. The gentle rise of her chest, the soft hiss of oxygen like sea foam. "God isn't taking her," I said. "People are unplugging her." A pause. "Rebellion will cost you. Obedience brings covering." When he hung up, the room felt colder. I remembered the envelopes Mom and Dad had given him, money sealed with trembling faith, and the belief that blessings could be purchased. I remembered Sade's boutique miracles, rent forgiven, inventory sponsored, sudden collaborations blessed from pulpits instead of contracts. Pieces slid into place, with a click that made me sick. My baby wasn't just an inconvenience. She was a threat to a system, my dependence, their control, the illusion of holiness. The social worker returned with a quiet smile. "It's approved. Your parents' access is restricted. They must be supervised." For the first time in weeks, I exhaled without checking a monitor. Then my aunt texted, "Call me. Don't tell your mother." I didn't know it yet, but the truth she carried would turn a bad story into a war. I called my aunt from the hospital's quiet family lounge. The vending machine hummed like a witness. "Amelia," she whispered, "I need to tell you something before it's too late." Her voice carried years of hesitation. "Your father isn't your biological father." The air thickened around me. "What?" "There was a man before him," she continued. "Someone your mother wanted to forget. Your father knows, but they never talk about it. If you ever pulled away from them completely. If you stood on your own," she stopped, as if she'd bitten the end off the sentence. "If I stood on my own, what?" I pressed. "They think it would unravel everything. The truth, the will, the image they've built." I sat there, the puzzle shifting in my head. Their coldness toward my pregnancy. Their need to keep me dependent. My baby's sudden role as a problem. "Be careful," she said. "They won't let go easily." When I hung up, my hands trembled, not from fear alone, but from clarity. This wasn't about my capacity as a mother. This was about control, money, and secrets buried so deep they'd choke on the dirt before letting them surface. I walked back to Bean's incubator, pressed my hand to the glass, and whispered, "They will not decide your fate." But deep down, I knew knowledge alone wasn't enough. I'd need proof, allies, and a way to cut every cord they thought they owned. The next time Pastor Daniel called, I recorded it. "Your parents have been faithful," he said smoothly, "but they're under pressure. Debts must be cleared. I told them blessings come when you release distractions." "Distractions," I repeated, tasting the word. "Yes, you're young, the child. Premature. Such things are signs of spiritual interference. If they focused on the business, on Sade's work, the family could rise again. And you'd get your cut," I asked. He laughed softly. "I see rebellion in your tone. You think too small, Amelia. This is bigger than you." I let him talk, the recorder catching every syllable. When the line went dead, I stared at my phone. This was no longer suspicion. This was conspiracy. That evening, I met with the social worker again. "I want these calls documented," I told her. "And I want security aware of possible interference during storms or power outages." She raised an eyebrow. "Is there a reason you mentioned storms?" I thought of the creaky power lines outside, of my mother's habit of waiting for moments of chaos. Just a feeling. The will came to me through a cousin who owed me a favor. A photocopy, folded twice. I opened it under the NICU's soft lights. Grandfather's estate, 2 houses, land upstate, cash accounts. And one clause: inheritance is to be released upon the formal presentation of a male heir to the family registry. I felt the ground tilt under me. My daughter, precious and small, didn't fit their plans. She wasn't the key to unlock their windfall. But if I could be pushed into adoption, especially to someone within their circle, her name could be replaced, the terms fulfilled. It wasn't just about my baby being a distraction. She was in the way of their payday. And suddenly, unplugging machines made more sense than any twisted scripture. Not everyone in my family was blind or complicit. My cousin Kioma, the one who quietly slipped me the copy of grandfather's will, showed up at the hospital 2 days later, with a coffee I didn't remember asking for. She looked tired, like she'd been wrestling with whether to come at all. "I've been hearing things," she said, sliding into the chair beside me in the NICU's family lounge. "And you need to know." I waited. "They talk about you like you're an obstacle. Amelia, not a person, not a mother." "An obstacle," her voice cracked. "I heard Sade on the phone with your mom. She said if she signs over the baby, everything falls into place. Mom says she'll get the pastor to soften her up." The coffee in my hand turned bitter. "Softening me up," I repeated. "Is that what this is? Unplugging machines until I believe I can't keep her alive?" Kioma shook her head, furious. "It's worse. They think if you give her up, especially to someone in their circle, they can list the child under your father's name in the family registry. Then the inheritance clause kicks in. Your mom's already hinted to people about a blessing coming to Sade's future family." I pulled out my phone and played her the recording of Pastor Daniel's call. Her eyes widened at the oily certainty in his tone. "You need to go to court," she said firmly. "And you need more than stories and phone calls. You need to catch them in the act." I stared at her, wondering if an accidental ally could be trusted in a family this tangled. But her next words told me she understood more than most. "Amelia, this isn't about them winning. It's about you surviving, and making sure Bean never grows up thinking love looks like this." The storm came the way some betrayals do fast. Loud and without apology. Thunder rattled the NICU windows just past midnight. Outside, rain lashed the glass like a warning. Inside, the lights flickered, then steadied on the generator's hum. I'd been watching the weather all evening. My instincts told me the chaos of a storm would be their perfect opportunity. I positioned my tote so the button camera's red light faced the outlet, and I made sure the social worker's earlier request for security standby was logged. The hallway dimmed. I could hear the shuffle of rubber soles, the whisper of a visitor badge against fabric. Then a scent, my mother's perfume. Familiar, expensive, and now as sinister to me as the smell of smoke before a fire. She didn't see me at first. She slipped into Bean's corner of the room, her posture casual, but her eyes locked on the plug like a predator tracking prey. Her hand moved toward it, steady, practiced. I stepped from the shadows. Touch that cord, I said, voice low and unshaking. And you will never see us again. She froze, then turned, her mouth curving into something between a smirk and a snarl. You wouldn't dare cut off your own parents. Watch me, I said. The camera caught it all, the reach, the plug, the confrontation. Security entered like clockwork. 2 guards flanking her. One gently but firmly guided her toward the hallway. The other took photographs of the outlet and her position. Ma'am, this is a restricted area, one of them said. She's my daughter, my mother snapped. Then act like it, the guard replied, echoing the nurse from weeks ago. As they escorted her out, I saw it, a flicker of something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Not guilt, not shame, fear. And for the first time, I realized the truth wasn't just my weapon anymore, it was her weakness. Security didn't just escort my mother out that night. They handed me an incident report and urged me to file it with the police. Do it while the footage is fresh, the guard said. The social worker stood beside me as I sat in the cramped security office, Bean's monitor sounds still echoing in my ears. I replayed the video for the 3rd time, the red light of the hidden camera casting a small glow on the desk. The officer leaned back in his chair. That's clear intent, and this isn't the first incident. I shook my head. It's been happening for weeks, accidents that were anything but. He wrote quickly, asking for dates, names, and any supporting evidence. I handed him my phone with every recorded call, every photo, every timestamped note. They've been trying to pressure me into giving up my daughter, I said, my voice cracking despite my effort to keep it steady. When the report was filed, the officer looked me in the eye. If they contact you, document it. If they show up here, call us immediately. You've got enough here for a protective order. I walked back to Bean's bedside, feeling a strange combination of relief and dread. Relief that someone in uniform had taken me seriously. Dread because I knew my parents, and now Pastor Daniel wouldn't take this quietly. 2 days later, I received a call from an unfamiliar number. It was Pastor Daniel, and his tone was sharper now. I heard you went to the police, he said, like a teacher scolding a child. Do you understand what you're risking? You're fighting your own blessing. Blessing, I repeated. You mean the inheritance, the land, the money my daughter's supposed to justify. He went silent for a beat too long. I have your calls recorded, I continued. And the police do too. Every word about releasing distractions. Every hint about debts. How much do my parents owe you, Pastor? That's slander, he snapped. It's evidence, I replied. And you should pray it doesn't play in a courtroom. The call ended abruptly, but I knew I'd struck a nerve. Later that week, Kioma texted, he's distancing himself from your parents, denying involvement. Good, let him run. The weaker their alliances, the stronger my case would be. The day in court felt colder than any NICU room. My parents sat at the defendant's table, my father's jaw locked, my mother in a tailored suit and an expression that tried and failed to look wounded. Sade scrolled on her phone until the judge entered. My lawyer played the footage from the storm night first. The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the monitor in the background. Then the audio clips, Pastor Daniel's voice, the casual talk of my baby as a distraction, the inheritance clause. The judge's face was unreadable until the nurse's statement was read aloud. Interference with medical equipment on 2 separate occasions, both times risking the child's stability. When my parents took the stand, they spun their narrative, concerned grandparents, misunderstood intentions. It was just for a moment, but cross-examination cut through that quickly. The ruling came swiftly, full custody to me, no unsupervised contact for my parents, and a permanent no-contact order for Pastor Daniel. The court order was like a lock on a door I'd been holding shut with my body for months. My parents tried to call, to send relatives as messengers, but I let everything go unanswered. Sade posted cryptic captions about family betrayal, and blood isn't thicker than water when poisoned. Let her, the people who mattered had seen the truth in court. Kioma visited with groceries, and a smile that didn't need an apology behind it. She's getting stronger, she said. watching Bean kick in her incubator. So are you. Weeks later, the moment came quietly. Bean's oxygen was removed for the first time in hours. No alarms, no sudden dips, just her tiny chest rising and falling like it was meant to. I moved us into a small sunlit apartment near the hospital. The walls bare, except for a photo of her first full day off the machines. Every night, I locked the door, checked the window, and sat beside her crib listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. When I thought about my parents, I didn't feel hatred anymore. I felt distance, miles of it, and I knew I'd keep it that way, because I'd learned something in those months. Love isn't proven by blood or titles. It's proven by who plugs in the cord, who stays by the bedside, who fights when it would be easier to walk away. I pressed my hand lightly over her back, feeling the steady warmth beneath my palm, and whispered the only prophecy I trusted now. You will live, Bean. And no one will ever choose a phone battery over your breath again. Please don't forget to share with your family and friends, and subscribe to our channel for more stories.